Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an APRO member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is APRO's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. APRO membership is about way more than advocacy. APRO connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. APRO's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. APRO's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. APRO is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With APRO, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the APRO family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with APRO. Hello, everybody out there. How you guys doing today? My name is Pete Chow. I'm your host of the RTO show, and today we're talking rent-to-own with Matt Radecki and Jeff Smith, the owners of Hometown Rent-to-Own. Best name ever, because it really just kind of showcases how we are in the neighborhood. These guys are from New York. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing great, Pete. How are you?
Doing well, Pete.
Excellent. Listen, guys, first off, I want to talk about Hometown Rent-to-Own because I can't help it. It's all over Facebook. There is a new store on the block. Where is it at? What's going on?
So actually, we just opened up two locations about 6 weeks apart, one in Corey, Pennsylvania, one in Gowanda, New York, with more plans on the way. So it's been a very, very busy year for us and continually going to be busier.
Wait a minute. Now, you're named Hometown. Is Hometown going to get too big?
There's never a too big. Not big enough.
I like it. I like it a lot.
And it doesn't matter how big we get, we're still going to have that hometown feel. We want to be connected with our customers. We know many of our customers by names and faces. You know, we still handshake with all our employees, and it'll continue to be that way, whether it's, store 6, store 12, or store 20.
That's what I'm talking about. There's nothing like that hometown feel. Now, one of the reasons that I've got these gentlemen here today is because it's actually a very serious situation. Right now, the importance of your state RDAs, and when we say the state RDA, it's the rental dealer associations, whether it's FRDA from Florida, whether it's Missouri, no matter where it's from, your RDA is extremely important because there's a lot going on. Now, before we get into the thick of it, give me a little background story. How did you guys get together to create Hometown?
So Jeff and I worked together at a previous company that's no longer in existence where we started. And I started in the industry in 2007, just as a delivery guy and account manager. And I made it very well known I wanted to be at the top and ask the questions on what it took to get there. In a matter of 7 years, I fulfilled every position within the industry. My last position I fulfilled with the prior company was a district supervisor. And then in 2014, we opened up our first location in Salamanca, New York, and it was off to the races from there.
Well, how is that for a success story? I'm going to tell you right now, if anybody hasn't seen Matt's a large guy. I would have definitely put you on the truck at first, too. I'd have been like, hey, this guy can move a fridge. No problem. Let's make it happen. And Jeff, so as you guys were doing this, whose idea was it to create Hometown?
It was actually our predecessor's idea to kind of create a spinoff as they transitioned into retirement due to some unforeseen and unfortunate circumstances. So we, Matt and another ex-partner approached me in 2021 to kind of help grow the business because my background was more of the IT home office side. I also started in the industry in 2000 as an account manager. But after 2006, worked my way into the home office field and was the IT manager for 12 stores, and kind of learned a lot of the payroll aspects of the behind the scenes, the inventory processing, the invoicing, the dealer, they're the vendors to deal with. And that's kind of where I first heard about APRO and Trib. And then Matt and Chris brought me on in 2021. And then we've kind of just grown in leaps and bounds together since then.
So Matt, are you over the operations and then Jeff is over the back end?
Yeah, that's kind of how we look at it. That's where my strengths are. Not that I can't do the back end, I just prefer to do operations front end. And Jeff, that's where his skill set's at, and we complement each other well.
I tell you what, man, I love to put my pretty face in the showroom if I don't scare anybody off with it. But I am probably better at customer relations than I am handling the back end. So I definitely understand that. I understand the way you're approaching it because you have to have a knack for it. There is some times where the four walls start coming in on you, and I like being outside and being able to greet people and talk to people. And I couldn't tell you the first thing about labor laws unless, you work your 40, don't drop anything on yourself, make sure you clock in and clock out and take a lunch. That's about it, right? So
that's it. You nailed it.
That's it. So Hometown Rent to Own is in New York. Now, the reason that we brought this up, everybody, is because your state RDAs are super important. Now, before we get into everything, the rental dealer associations are set forward so that they have an understanding of what's going on in the state legally. So not just with what's coming down the pipe, what's already there and what you want to do to address these issues. Now, as far as I remember, and Jeff, I think this is where you come in because you're playing a big role in this. New York really didn't have an active RDA. Is that correct?
Correct. Once I got into, I mentioned that I was behind the scenes at my old company and kind of saw, I knew a little about APRO and TRIB, but once I got to a meeting of the minds in Atlanta last February, I kind of just saw the camaraderie in the industry, and that led me to kind of follow it up into APRO in San Antonio at RTO World, and then when I found out there was a need for an RDA board, I guess, so to speak, I put my name in the hat to be president of the New York Rental Dealers Association, and it kind of just highlights the importance of being APRO members for any dealers out there, that independent dealers that aren't APRO members. You definitely need to be, because they were on top of this bill, as soon as it got scratched onto a napkin or a piece of paper, and Charles was in touch with me to get the wheels in motion to kind of start being proactive and put our best foot forward to prevent this thing from coming into play.
Absolutely. So let's play this out. Let's show the scene. Right now, a few months ago, APRO, the Association of Progressive Rental Organizations, is one of the big watchdogs that we have. They watch over the nation as far as looking at the political landscape, the legality of what we're doing every single day, because rent to own is governed by its own laws. Well, out of nowhere comes New York. Now we have a representative, Helen Weinstein, out of New York, who presents she presents a bill and then somebody else presents another one. But the main one that we're talking about right now, guys, help me out with this. I know I read up on it a little bit, but in your words, what does this bill do? What does this do for the people of New York? And what does it do, and more importantly, to the rent to own in that state?
Yeah, it's 9585. It basically was threatening to put a limit or or quantify rent to own as a credit transaction, being lumped in with the buy now pay later people, and it would put a limit on what we could charge, and essentially put us out of business, because that limit was so minute and constraining on what kind of margin we could have, that it would put the independent and the big dealers out of business in New York State, quite honestly.
So what it does, it takes the RTO transaction, lumps it in with a credit transaction, and then it puts a limit on the interest rate. Is that pretty much how it works?
Yeah, that's the way that was the way I understood it. It was like a 6% rate or something crazy like that.
Correct. Now, what happened? So a couple of months ago, APRO gets a hold of this. They find out what's going on, and they go to reach out to the New York Renter Dealers Association. How far did that go? And then how did it transition from you being outside of it doing Hometown to also now being the president of the RDA?
APRO and the RDAs are for the independent dealers, so to speak. And had I not been involved, I probably wouldn't have known about it, quite honestly. And in New York State, Rent-A-Center and Aaron's are primarily a big portion of what's in the state, and it was really encouraging to see Brian Pachersky from Rent-A-Center and Mike Wall from Aaron's kind of piggyback with us and present a united front to the assembly and to New York State in general. We had some lobbyists on the ground in Albany working for us and pushing the word to those there to show that we're not bad people. We're not taking advantage of unfortunate or underprivileged consumers, that we're actually there to help them. it was really just an awesome thing to be a part of. It was unexpected in a sense that, when I took over as president of New York rental dealers, it was kind of like, oh, you have a meeting once a year and you kind of just just get by and do your thing. And then all of a sudden, my feet got put to the fire pretty quickly when Charles called me and told me there was a bill being put out. So great learning experience, and great to see just the unified front of the industry as a whole, large and small dealers.
Well, I just want everybody to know, and I'm going to be full and open on this. APRO is a sponsor of this show, and the reason that we took on APRO as a sponsor of this show is because they do so much for the rental industry. When Charles Smitherman, the CEO of APRO, gets a hold of something, he really puts it in action. He really puts in quick. So he puts in this call to you guys, and then so we got 9585, but there's also 9275. Now, do those go hand in hand as far as taking out the lease to own or the rent to own transaction and compiling it into a credit transaction? Are they both kind of doing the same thing?
I that's from my understanding. Yeah, the 9275 I think was more the BNPL, or buy now pay later, where the 9585 was more rent to own driven. I believe neither one of them are good for anybody, really. I mean, we provide a service to our customers that nobody else provides, and if they. Yes, it's a small segment of the population, but they're still, they would then become an unserved portion of the state, So it would definitely be unfortunate if this were to pass. And to speak to that, we're not out of the woods yet. We are going to be proactive and probably go out to Albany sometime before 2025, because June 6th came and went, and the Senate has closed for the year. We've got some work to do to stay in front of this thing.
So just to tell everybody how much this can affect the New York transaction when it comes to lease to own or rent to own transactions, there is approximately 100,000 customers that currently utilize the rent to own transaction in New York State. Now, when you talk about as a whole, New York State has about 200 brick and mortar locations, and they employ around 1,200 people. You're not just impacting the customer. This is going to impact all of these businesses that stand to take a really, really heavy hit amongst a time right now where I think all businesses are taking a hit. I mean, economy-wise, we're all taking it on the chin. To then say you're going to displace 1,200 people, 200 stores, and I mean, honestly, that's huge. Now, right now, it also represents about $55 million in wages for New York State, which I think everybody can use to get paid. And then not only that, that's $7 million in payroll taxes alone each year that the RTO industry in just New York State represents. That is a huge, huge issue. Now, as you're going forward, right? And I know Hometown is building up, they're getting ready. This happens as you're putting together the plans to make this new Hometown RTO store up and going. How did it make you feel when you start, hey man, we got a new store, we got a new location, we got the lease set up, we're about to buy all the furniture, and then bam, wait a minute, what's 9585? What's going on with that? How did that work?
Well, I'll try to take that one. Jeff was concentrating on that side of the business, to where I tried to remind myself to try not to worry about the things I cannot control, and the universe will work itself out, and focus on the things in front of me that I can control. And, it was still pedal to the floor on growth mode and operations, and making sure things were running smoothly, and making sure our image was fitting our brand in the opening stores, getting staffing into place, and everything that goes into opening a store, making sure that the trucks are en route and everything like that. While we're still worried about this, and with our lending partner and everything that goes into that, I knew that we were going to come out on the other side of it at some point in time and still be able to operate business. Where there's a law, there's a loophole, and I would have found a way, Jeff would have found a way, we would have made it happen. In fact, I think this happened in Pennsylvania a while ago, to where they had to create a rent-to-rent transaction.
Wow, that's a scary thought. And for everybody who's listening in, the reason that we're talking about the RDAs, the reason that we're talking about APRO right now, the legality, the political viewpoints of it, is sometimes it's somebody outside of the thought processes. Sometimes you have somebody like Representative Weinstein who's trying to help the constituents of a certain area. And what happens is you kind of get lumped in without knowing exactly what you're affecting. And so what happens is they're trying to make this law and it lumps rent to own into this law, which now we've got a whole big problem because now you're involving an industry that has nothing to do with credit transactions into 100% being credit transactions. And there's a reason why we do rent to own. We are not credit based. We have a lot of people out there who don't want to have their credit affected in any way, shape, or form, still come in and have all the functionality, services, and processes that rent to own brings. So now this gets added on and then it's in session. But when I saw it, when I heard about it as it's coming out the pipe, it kind of made session a little bit late. I mean, it wasn't in the beginning of the session running. It was kind of more towards the back end, the back third, the back quarter. Was that advantageous for us for it not to really be in the beginning and kind of shown at the end? Do they plan on picking it up next session?
Yeah, I think that was definitely, played a hand in our advantage of not, worrying quite as much as we could have or should have, had it been introduced early on in session. The fact that Senator Weinstein is retiring, I think maybe played into it. I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to speak to that really. But to your point too, there are always unintended consequences when something like RTO gets lumped into a bill such as that, which is why we were on the forefront of putting together a little leaflet or a leave behind, kind of like what we do when we climb the hill in Washington. We always have a leave behind that we, give for the aides that we meet with out there. That's, just speaks to the positives of rent to own and how many people we serve, even though it's only, you mentioned 100,000 customers. That's only 1% of the population when you look at it as a whole. But it's still a very important 1%. It's still a percentage that needs to be served and has needs that we can provide. And it's unfortunate that we have the reputation that we do because we do so much good, in all of our communities and provide such a great service to people that it would be unfortunate if this were to pass.
Jeff, I'm so glad you said that because sometimes I think we forget in this country the enormity, the size, the coverage. 1% is 100,000. There are some countries that are not the size of New York City, nor have a 25th of what they have as far as population. And yet it's one of the largest economies in the U.S. And 100,000 people can be greatly affected. But then here's the other side of the coin. Now, New York has always been seen as a progressive state. Good, bad, or indifferent, it just means that they introduce things first or they do things first. Well, let's take a look at the other side of that. Now, if we're going into an entirety, if we're going into what's going on in the country, if you're going on to what happens outside of New York State, okay, now we're talking a whole different story. Because the RTO industry roughly, on average, there's about 40,000 rent-to-own jobs in the United States, 6,100 stores. And that doesn't exactly include the onlines, but 65% of rent-to-own companies are actually independent or small business, just like hometown rent-to-own. So what happens if APRO's not there? What happens if we don't have a state RDA to check this? This gets put into law in one state. Then what happens? I want you guys to understand rent-to-own, like anything else, is one domino. It takes one move unchecked, and we can have an outbreak of laws that weren't set for rent-to-own. Now, I know that rent-to-own is highly, highly reviewed. We have our own laws. We have our own statutes. We are watched over. We've had that for years, roughly almost 40 years in, I think, New York. So what do you think brought this about? How did we get into this situation to begin with, and where do we go from here? What is the idea? And how do we say we need to step in? We're going to Albany. Do we have a chance to actually sit down with Ms. Weinstein and say, hey, I know that you are representing District 41. I know you're an assemblywoman in the New York State, but let me tell you how this works.
We have some representation in form of lobbyists that, we connected through with APRO that allowed us to get the information to the right people, I guess. Which was critical, and being updated throughout the process, we were able to kind of stay in the loop and kind of know, how concerned we should be throughout, each week before June 6th came and went, and even at the end, there's kind of like a grab bag, so to speak, of bills that kind of get tossed in at the end. So until things finally close on, when session finally closes, I think it was at like 8:15 on June 6th, where you're never really out of the woods.
Sitting at the edge of your seat, right? You're sitting at the edge of your seat going, "Oh my God, I can't wait for overtime to be over."
Yeah, when's that gavel gonna hit? So that somebody else kind of what gave us a little bit of pause or a little bit of cause for concern was somebody else picked up the bill and was kind of trying to run with it also, which leads us to believe, regardless of what would have happened, we would have been proactive for 2025. But we do need to keep our ears to the ground and our people out there to spread the good word of what rent-to-own can really do. And a story I'll share that I think is awesome, that was shared with me throughout this process was Mr. Meeks. I'm not sure if he's a congressman or a senator. I apologize that I don't know exactly his position, but it was actually very familiar with rent-to-own because he went to college in New York City and couldn't afford a mattress and was actually sitting in a beach chair, I believe, if I remember the story correctly. And he got sick and his parents came down to visit him and found out he was sleeping in a beach chair in his apartment. And they couldn't afford to buy a mattress either. So they went to a rent-a-center around the corner and rented a mattress for him for the remainder of his term in college and then returned it once he went back home.
Oh, rent-a-center to the rescue.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's all kinds of cool stories out there like that. So we do have people on our side. We do have people that, believe in what we do and have used the services. When we go to, I just went to DC in April and it's funny how many of the aides have never heard of us. But then there was the other side of it that a girl still had a dresser from when a girl down in Florida still had a dresser from when she was a girl from Aaron's that her parents had bought because her parents couldn't afford to buy furniture. So she was an aide for a congressman or a senator of Florida, and she was familiar with the product because she still had a dresser. So there are people out there that believe in what we do, which is awesome. We just need to spread the word and just educate people really is what it stems down to, which is why, I would encourage anybody to go to, if people don't know what I mean when I say climb the hill, every year APRO has a legislative conference in Washington, D.C., where the states break out into groups and go, spread the good word of rent-to-own to those that don't understand. And we have flyers that we give information, the economic impact, like you spoke about, Pete, with how many people we employ and the payroll taxes that we pay and the economic impact of rent-to-own on the state, at the state level.
There is so much knowledge that needs to be passed over when we go. We need to give it from us to them so that they can see we are a big part of our communities, especially somebody like Matt. He's a big guy, big part of the community. Matt, how important is it to get your employees to understand and be involved in things like this? Do you share the knowledge with them as far as the operation side? Because I can tell you right now, when I go see you guys, because I was on the Hill as well, and I love seeing you guys up there and I love being a part of it. But here's the thing. I feel like there's a lot less of us on the Hill than there should be. How do we get them involved? I mean, Matt, are you talking to these guys about what's really going on as far as on the Hill or these session points that they have or these laws that are getting passed? Is that something that goes over in the Monday morning meetings?
Let's take a quick break.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Chow here from the RTO Show podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space. Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing. And let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too.
We try to drive it home. This most recent one, let me back up first. I'm a big guy. Yes, I always say that I'm 5'9" in reality, but that's just a joke. But going forward,
and just so you guys know, he's not 5'9" at all.
Just we didn't want to put the fear in our employees that, hey, this is real. This is what we're facing. If this goes through, as rent to own as we know it is no longer, and we didn't want to put the fear in them that their jobs could potentially be on the line. Their careers, everything that they've worked for, could be over just by a law being passed and how the law is interpreted. But as far as rent-to-own knowledge and things going on within the industry, absolutely, we're huge with it. I'm huge with training. Every single day, our staff is training. In fact, I had my managers send me over a weekly schedule with a week prior to what they're going to be training on, or a focus point on what they will be training with.
You know, you bring up a good point. Sometimes, and you know, every situation is different. Do you stir up the masses by giving them the honest truth and what's going on? Or do you play it by the book and make sure that there's something to commit to once it's done? Because sometimes you say things and people can get worried about it before it's really there, before it's really an issue. And then when it does come down to it, you've already had the pandemonium. And sometimes it's good to kind of navigate that one issue at a time. So here it comes. Now we finally end with the session, like you said, Jeff, on June 6th. We've got everything kind of poised and ready to go now. When did Hometown join APRO? Was it like right off the bat? Well, like, was that a decision that was like, hey, I'm going to join these guys right off the bat? And then how well did that pay off?
Yeah, we in 2014 with the previous business partner, we were advised right off the bat with previous owners that helped us get going, Randy and Mario Tander, who were longtime TRIB members, that we need to be involved with APRO and TRIB. So we knew we had that guidance and mentorship. And to this day, he still mentors us both in the industry to get affiliated with APRO and TRIB both.
Now, if you guys don't understand, APRO is the Association of Progressive Rental Organizations, and that is the watchdog of the industry. The TRIB is the rental industry buying group. So if you want to get some good pricing, you want to get some good deals, TRIB is where you go. And then sometimes they join together and make it even better, like they will in RTO World 2024 in Orlando. You guys got to be a part of that. So if you have the 1-2 punch where you got APRO, you've got TRIB, we've started the NYRDA, correct? It is the New York Rental Dealer Association. So it's the NYRDA. How much can we see with you guys kind of spearheading this? How much can we see coming from the RDA now in New York? Are we going to have some big get-togethers? Are we going to have some big meetings? Because when you guys go over to Albany, you've got to call me. I want to be a part of that.
We actually have merged forces with the New England Rental Dealers Association. We're just kind of working out the legality kinks of all that stuff. Just because there's so few independent dealers in New York State, and then like Massachusetts, Rhode Island are kind of in the same boat. I think John is the president. I can't remember his last name. I apologize. It was the president of NYRDA, which is the Northeast Rental Dealers Association. We've kind of joined forces and have talked about putting on some kind of a meeting similar to the PARD, which is really good, that Sandy puts on in Pennsylvania down in Harrisburg. Yes. I went to that last year because we were going to be opening up a store in PA, so I wanted to see what a real, and I went for two purposes. One, we were opening a store in PA, and two, I wanted to see what a real functioning rental dealers association meeting looked like. So I attended that last June. So John and I have talked about doing something similar, possibly in the Syracuse area, or, even closer to New York City, since it's, a little more central to the New England folks. But we could even meet in New York City if we had to, and kind of, take everybody out and kind of just figure it out from there. But yes, they're definitely, it won't be like John Cleek, Missouri Rental Dealers Association big right away, but we'd like to strive to get to that at some point.
Well, let me tell you, if you guys have any questions or need any pointers, I can give you his number. That guy's got it going on over there. You couldn't set foot in Missouri without hearing Cleek's name. Some way, somehow, some form of it. It will permeate into everything that you're doing, because they're all over the place. And it's one of those things where you want to build that knowledge. You want to build that base so that everybody understands, knows, and where to go to for the sources of information to have this. So they reach out, they let you know APRO does this, and you do it. Now, if somebody wanted to follow up on this story, let's say I have somebody in rent to own or listening to this, and they want to follow up on this New York story outside of what we're doing, where's the best information to get stuff like this? Even in their own state, where would be the best place to kind of find what's going on politically and legally with the rent-to-own space?
I would say probably the APRO website, or contact, find out who their rental dealer president is, and get on like an email chain, or even volunteer to be part of the Rental Dealers Association. We're always looking for people to help. In fact, I know when I go to PA in a couple of weeks, they're having elections for board members and vice presidents and secretaries. So I mean, it is all volunteer, obviously, but what better way to support your community than or your industry than being a member of the State Rental Dealers Association.
Well, I will say the best place to get that news and knowledge, yes, is number one APRO, and number two is going to be the RTO show. You guys are going to want to dial in all the time and find out what's going on here, Matt.
Definitely.
So we have everything laid out for this news store. I've seen a couple new videos. I've seen some crazy furniture.
Yeah.
Where are we going to open up next? Where are we going to?
I think it's going to be more Pennsylvania based by the time we're all said and done. And I'm a small town guy. I like to stick to small town USA. From a bigger city, like Buffalo, it's just not us. It reflects our name, hometown. Keeping it small and controllable. So into those small towns of Pennsylvania. And I know Mike Tissett is, notorious for going in those small towns, and, it seems to work well for him and a lot of other dealers that we know. So, we're going to kind of follow those footsteps. Well,
I can tell you right now, they have the lockdown on certain areas. Let me tell you, Cleek's got it in Missouri, and then Tissett's got it in Ohio. They've locked it down. Right. Now, when you start reaching out into Pennsylvania, you're going to start bumping up against Magic, and those guys, they got it going on. But I can tell you what, if you ever have chance to sit down with their guys, Patrick and Joe and all those guys, let me tell you, they can give you some information on how to grow your location, how to create a great culture. And you know what? The education piece with Joe, we're going to talk about it again because they have what they call the Magic University. Now, I don't know if you guys are going to be going that route as far as hometown, but let me tell you, man, they got some good stuff in there. If you ever want to train your guys, you got to give the guys a call and say, hey, man, I want to sit on a session or two and find out what's going on out there. And I can tell everybody right now, the RDAs, and it's so important to have your RDA set up in your state. If you do not have an RDA, the Rental Dealer Association set up for your state, maybe you can do what Jeff was talking about and be a part of a multi-state RDA, whether it's the Northeast, whether it's New York, no matter what it is, you're going to want to be informed. You're going to want to be a part of that. And especially for hometown people, just like hometown rent to own, when you have these small businesses, you have these small places, it's easy to say, well, Rack's going to take care of it. It's easy to say, you know what, Aaron's going to take care of it. But the truth is, they're going to have one voice. They're going to send somebody, and they're going to represent Rent-A-Center as a whole. They're going to send somebody to represent Aaron's as a whole. And although they have a conglomerate of people that they could send, they're going to send a representative or two. How great is it if everybody who's in rent to own, everybody who has that, something to lose, send somebody up there? Now you got hometown. Now you've got buddies. Now you've got everybody down the street coming in and saying, hey, that's not what we do. This is not how it works. Let me show you the benefits of rent to own. Let me show you how we differ from the credit transaction and how we make lives better. So coming into this, did you guys ever think that you would be a part, like, oh my God, this all of a sudden started coming down the pipe in the last couple of months, and on top of opening a store, we got to deal with this? Like, how crazy was that in the whole transition of things?
I can tell you, if I had hair, I probably wouldn't have hair. Which anybody knows me, I'm bald, and it's okay. I rock it. But I mean, it was pretty stressful. I'm not gonna lie about that. But the stress factors of not wanting to scare off employees while still keeping them somewhat aware. Hey, like, this is what's going on. Carefully wording it, and at the same point in time, there's a lot on the line. Being a small dealer, opening up not one but two locations almost 6 weeks apart. So it was a very, very crazy time, and it's starting to smooth out now, and we're seeing the other side of it. But, the foot's always to the floor for growth mode.
Well, just so you guys know it, we are praying that it does not pass the way it is right now. It has to be amended. It has to be changed. It has to be looked after. And there's no other people. I'm going to tell you guys right now, I have complete faith in Matt and Jeff to spearhead this in their state and tackle it straight on, because I can tell you right now, this is the first domino. And if we don't watch it, if we don't curtail this, if we don't let them know how important rent to own is in the form that it's in now, that it's been highly regulated for the last 40 years, that we have companies and people and families that rely on this from day to day. And this is what we do. And we do it very well. This is actually one of the few industries that's still growing. Hence, we have another hometown rent to own going up. So When's the next one coming? When can we say that? We're not making hometown too small, right? You guys are going from small to big. So when's the next one coming?
Well, as we learn from other dealers, and we learn each time we open up a store, we like one store to become profitable before we start the process on opening up another store. But I would say within a year and a half, we'll start approaching that fifth store, sixth store, and continue. Ideally, we would like to grow a store a year. And I think that's probably where the sweet spot is. And, we're already doing research on where we want to put our next location. We kind of have an idea in mind, but kind of going off subject, my first taste of how close and tight knit the rent to own industry is, per dealers is I was a store manager in a rather inner city store, and I had a skip. And I got out the who's who book of rent to own dealers. I found out where this person was, and this was way before Data True or anything like that. And I ended up finding where the person was, contacted that local dealer. The person went and picked up, and I remember to this day, it was a 3-piece dinette and a 32-inch TV. The guy knocked on the door, was able to retrieve the merchandise, and actually repoed it from the lady. And that's where I kind of knew that, yes, we're competitors, but we're all in it together.
Well, it is a friendly business. Sometimes I've noticed in some of the bigger corporations or some of the bigger companies, there isn't as much camaraderie as it is from people who have been doing it in the smaller areas, as far as like a couple of store dealers or somebody who's only got 10 stores or 20 stores. There is something out there. If you haven't been to a TRIB meeting, if you haven't been to an APRO convention, you are missing out. And Jeff was telling me before the call in the green room, he's going to have part of a session with Kit Knight all the way from Iowa. So Kit Knight from Iowa, they're going to have a session at the RTO World 2024. What are you guys talking about?
It's kind of going to just be like an open table discussion. We were going to do a panel, but I think we kind of tweaked it a little bit, and we're going to just have like a round table, and people can bring their questions, and we can kind of try to give our best experiences as 3 to 4 store owners as to what worked best for us, and more importantly, what didn't work. So you know what not to do, which is almost as important as what to do.
I think they go hand in hand. I mean, you can't have one without the other, right?
Absolutely.
To do, not to do. You know what? I can tell you right now, I don't know how big my list is to do, but I can have a big old list of what not to do, all the mistakes I've made along the way. And I could say, guys, I don't know what really works well. I'm still trying that out, but I can tell you what not to do. You probably don't want to say this to Miss Jones if you're trying to grow your business, right? So you definitely want to make sure that you have that on either side. And so when we have these open discussion, open panels, basically they're going to mediate and say, this is what's on the table. This is what we think. What do you guys think? And it opens the floor to have a lot of different people say things. And the reason it's so important is because I might be able to do it well, but I can't do part B well. And somebody might be able to do part B very well, but part A is kind of gloomy. They don't really understand it. And we get everybody together, all these minds from across the United States, and say, hey, this is how we rent to own. How do you do it? Well, this is what I do. How do you do it? And then all of a sudden, it makes sense. Guys, I really appreciate you guys being able to do that. Matt, I can't wait to see you again. Jeff, I think I did see you on the Hill, right? We saw each other up there in DC, correct?
Yep, briefly, yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And so hometown rent to own, opening up a place near you, and then Jeff and Matt kind of being able to see what's coming down the pipe. APRO lets them know. Jeff jumps on the, are you going to be on an RDA, Matt?
At some point in time, yeah, absolutely. I think the problem was, at the time is we were opening up these 2 locations, and I was so geared towards making sure that operations were, perfected as we could get, and then just working on the backside of things. But yeah, eventually I'll be a part of that as well.
Matt's like, if they don't have collecting and renting over that, I don't know if I want to be on the board. I just, we were talking about that on the Hill, as far as junk fees and what's going on in the nation and how they want to define rent to own. And it's so huge how different we are from that credit landscape. That 6% will essentially destroy the rent to own industry. And some of you might be going, well, 6%, that's a good margin. Well, considering how much you get out of rent to own with the free delivery, no credit checks, free service, free loaners, you get a same as cash period where you're not paying any interest at all. You understand where that's at. They give you a full term mock-up and say, hey, if you paid every single payment on this agreement, this is exactly what you're going to pay. I don't know any credit transaction that says, if you pay exactly this, this is what you're going to pay off. And you want to know why? Because credit affects you completely different. Interest affects you differently. Rent to own doesn't have that. And we're open, and we've been open for the last 40 years. You cannot look at a rental agreement and go, I don't know what my payments are. I don't know what I'm going to pay. I don't know when I'm due. I don't know when the same as cash ends. And I don't know the legalities of this. It is all already there. It's 100% good to go. And this is why your state RDAs are so important. Matt, Jeff, I can't tell you, I'm really glad that you guys are spearheading this and making this a priority for New York State. And really, I'm going to tell you guys what, you might not have heard this yet, but you're making it a priority for the rent-to-own industry, because you guys are on the front line of what could change possibly rent-to-own for the entire country. And as long as I feel like you guys are there, you got the right people in place, we're in some good hands. I don't want to tell you that. We really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you very much. And that was one of the things. If New York was going to pass this, other states pay attention to what New York does. It's not that other states just make things up. They pay attention to what other states are doing, and that's one of the big fears. So hopefully we can put a squash to it and continue keeping that good name out there.
Well, in case anybody doesn't know, California and New York are probably the two states that you look at the most for laws passed and followed. And as it stands right now, California is almost a no-go fly state for rent to own. It just doesn't work out there. We let New York fall, and it's just going to be a domino effect. And it's not that any one state is not as important. The thing is it always happens in a few states. You've got Texas, you've got California, and you've got New York that kind of just stands on it and says, and the good thing about Texas is usually just pertains to them, whether it's a border dispute or whatever, it just happens to deal with them. When you're talking about New York and you're talking about the Northeast and you talk about the West, you're really just talking about New York State and you're talking about California. And they lead the way in most laws passed and followed. And it's one of those things like, if it passes here, it's going to get the attention of somebody else. And we've got to do our part to not only educate, but if there is a law that's going to be passed and there's nothing that we can do about it, make sure that they carve out the rent-to-own industry so that they can understand we are not in that credit side. We don't handle it on the credit transaction in the same way at all, ever. So, guys, we're going to open up more hometown rent-to-owns. We're looking to move into Pennsylvania. Jeff's now spearheading this with Matt and the New York Rental Dealers Association for what's going on, the issue of the 9585 and the 9275, those laws or those bills in New York State. What else is down the pipe besides RTO World 2024? Any good news? Anything else going on?
Potentially some other ventures in the work, but we're going to keep those under wraps for now. We're working on some other business ventures to expand our portfolio a little bit, but that's I guess all I'll say about that for right now.
All right. We'll let you guys keep that close to the vest. I totally understand that. And for everybody who has a question, if you guys don't have the ability to reach out to look these up under these statutes, you're always welcome to hit us up on the show. You can email me at pete@thertoshowpodcast.com. Ask me any questions. If you have a question for Matt and Jeff, you can also hit up us at the podcast and say, hey, what's going on with this? You don't use emails? I know we're a little bit old. It's okay. Go to social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Send us a message. I will get in contact with Jeff and Matt, or we can find out together. Also, we do appreciate you guys listening. And if you have any questions about them, go to hometownrto.com. Visit what they got. They actually have a great website, which looks freaking amazing. I'm telling you, I've seen, companies that have 10 and 15 stores that doesn't look quite that good. You have a great social media presence. Guys, Jeff, Matt, I really appreciate you being on the show. And is there any last words of wisdom you want to share with the listeners before we go?
Not that I can think of. Just keep renting and collecting.
Renting and collecting. That's the best spot. And I can tell you guys, as always, get your collections low to get your sales high. Have a good one.